Hey guys, we are in my hotel room in Chiang Mai. I'm trying things a little bit differently. The past two that I've done, I had the camera pointed out, and so I had to go behind the camera in order to see any of the comments. So now this is the front camera. This is like a selfie. So if things are backwards, it's so that I can read the comments without having to jump behind the camera to do it. The past 2 days I've been doing 500 elbows and 500 knees as the core of what I'm doing, so it's kind of high repetition. And today I'm just feeling different. Today I just kind of feel like mixing it up, so I'm going to change things up for myself. You guys are totally welcome to do what I'm doing. You're welcome to not do what I'm doing. You're welcome to do what I did for the last 2 days, or kind of whatever you want to do. If you want to join in as we're working out at the same time, or just get ideas from this, or just do your own thing and know that we're all kind of in this together, working out in our social distancing. That's cool too. So what I've done is I've moved my coffee table off to the side a little bit so that I have more wall space, and I'm going to be using my wall to correct my technique. So for the past 2 days I was really working on high repetition. If you guys didn't see those, the reason I choose high repetition for some of my workouts is that something that I learned from Yo Kun Pan is whenever I would kind of overturn on a kick or not come back off of something, he would make me do 2, because repetition in and of itself kind of calibrates the technique that allows you to do more than one of something. And with high repetition, if you allow yourself to fall out of being correct in the technique, but you just keep going, it will recorrect itself. It's don't stop every time you stutter. Try to move on and have this recovery. So that's a little bit of what high repetition is like. Today what I'm going to be doing more is about self-correction on techniques. So the reason I've cleared out my coffee table in order to use my wall is that I have a tendency, and I think a lot of people have a tendency, to what I call blowing out your lines, or coming out of your frame. Something that I noticed about Golden Age fighters and the best amazing fighters is that they stay in a frame. It's you have a box, actually how I'm in the camera right now. If you're in your box, everything comes out really nice and kind of smooth in here, rather than the elbow kind of as you're punching it goes this way. Chai Sasakun, who is an incredible teacher and an incredible boxer, has this watching. He has this incredible way of calibrating everything, and he'll stand behind me while I'm throwing something, and it's he's looking down a pool cue to kind of look and see whether something is on. And if you're punching and your punch is coming like this, the power is actually going out that way. So after training with Sagat, I came up with the wall, which is that you put yourself against the wall, and so because you have something against your arm, you can keep your elbow tucked and just kind of force the calibration that way. So that's what I'm going to be doing with my wall, and I'm going to be doing it both with punches and elbows as well as with kicks. So that's what I'm doing today. You guys, again, are welcome to join in. I'll probably keep with my 500s, so I'll do 500 repetitions of the punches, and probably try to get around 300 of the kicks instead of 500. That's not because I'm being a wuss, but that's because kicks take a lot more time in using them against this thing. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to get started. Again, if you guys have questions or anything, just throw them this way while I'm working out, and I'll try to get some of these answers in here. And oh no, so sorry, I can't say your first name, but Karim is saying, I think I've picked up the virus and I'll just watch. Rest as much as you possibly can. I hope that you're okay, and hopefully it's a super mild case and you'll be all right in a little bit. But everyone take care of yourselves. Everybody stay hydrated and rest as much as possible. And if you can do this along with me, do it along with me. If you're just going to watch it and get ideas, that's cool too. This will go up on YouTube and on my Facebook as well. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to put myself against the wall, and I'm going to switch sides in order to get both of my arms. But I'm going to do sets of 100 because that's what I was doing with my elbows and knees as well. 50 on the right, 50 on the left. I did some elbows, some hooks, things like this. I was changing my weight, I think because I saw Cha-Cha's name and because I was thinking about Cha-Cha and starting this. He has a different way of dealing with weight transfer. It's actually super incredible. He does the opposite of what a lot of us learn. So a lot of us learn that when you're gonna jab, you bring your weight onto your front foot and you kind of like step with the jab. Cha-Cha does the opposite. Cha-Cha keeps his weight on his back leg and jabs this way. So I'm actually doing both against the wall. I'm playing with where my weight is on either foot when I'm throwing that technique. And the reason I'm doing both is because I want to feel what works for me and kind of make adjustments and acclimate for myself and be like, what feels good when I'm throwing these things? I've learned different schools of thought. People often ask me whether it's very confusing to have different teachers teaching you different techniques. It's only confusing if you try to do both at the same time. You can't do both at the same time, but you can do both within the context of like one round or like anything like that. You can kind of pick between things in the way that people who are multilingual can speak multiple languages at once. They're not actually speaking French and English at the same time, but they can answer their mom in French and listen to their dad in English at the same time and stuff like that. You can do that with technique. And really the only wrong technique is one that you're trying to force on yourself that you don't feel or that doesn't work for you. So you can kind of pick things based on how they work for you and how they feel for you. That's what good technique is. All right. Hey, Evern. Evern is watching from Malaysia. I'm not going to alternate too much between the punches and the kicks because I'm going to be doing fewer kicks. But I'm going to go back and do another 100 of the punches with some elbows and hooks thrown in. And I'm going to... In the last one, I was kind of pushing myself against the wall a little bit, which you don't need to do. You want to really like stay in your actual stance and just use the wall as a cheat, as like a kind of, what are they called? Training wheel. Use the wall as a training wheel. So you want to keep your feet more or less exactly the way you would actually have it in your stance. I was kind of like this against the wall to squish myself, but I want to try to get more to my actual stance. So I'm going to go back and do another 100, and then I'll do kicks after that. It's a little better. I can feel that I want to like flare out a little bit even by taking just a little bit more space from the wall, but it's just the wall kind of like catches it a little bit, which I think is really good. Part of the thing about today is I don't know, I feel a little down. I feel really tired. I slept, which is really good, but making adjustments to your training based on how you feel, I think is an important thing. It's not necessarily a like, I don't feel good, so I'm not going to go at all. Sometimes that has to happen, but sometimes you end up getting energy from what you're doing. And you also don't want to totally check out, but you do want to pay attention to how you feel. So today I'm just changing up what I'm doing to really focus on the technical elements, like making these corrections with technique, because I think it's really important for all of us. I do hope that this social distancing and everything being shut down and locked down, I do hope that it is as short term as can possibly be in a safe way. But we might be looking at more time than we're really thinking about right now in terms of being like this. And so it's not just a matter of like keeping fit in your apartment and like doing, push-ups and jumping jacks and things like that in order to try to maintain your fitness as best you can until you can get back to your gym. I want all of us to get back to our gyms ASAP, but I think it's really important, and I want people to really understand in what I'm doing today and what I'm understanding for myself and what I'm doing today is that you can improve your technique at home without your teachers, without your trainers. Just take the things that you've learned, find little things that kind of enforce, like really slowing down and thinking about what something feels like, putting yourself against a wall so your elbow can't flare out, working on actual technique and improving your technique while you're at home is totally something we can be doing, and I think it's really important to understand that. I do not use my spinning elbow in my fights very often at all. I think I've thrown maybe 5 in my 264 fights. I've thrown a spinning back elbow. It's not something that I use often. I got cut by Duuglas-Ittu on a spinning elbow here in a fight. That's actually really good photos. I ended up winning that fight, but I'm the forward fighter, and spinning back elbows are mostly when your opponent's coming towards you or if they're against the ropes. It's not the forward fighter's move. But I got cut by one from Duuglas-Ittu. She throws it often, and she throws it really well, and she landed it perfectly on me in that fight. That was for Naikonam Tom Day a couple of years ago. Good morning to London as well. All right, so I'm gonna do the kicks now. So if you guys have followed me for a while, you might be familiar with the term the golden kick. We call it the golden kick because of the golden age of Muay Thai, which was in the 80s and 90s into the very early 2000s. But the kick was very different then than it is now. It's not wide at all. It has this incredible trajectory where it kind of like comes up the line of the opponent's body and then just kind of turns in at the last second. If you want to see demonstrations of this or not really a breakdown, but like I have a technique vlog on the golden kick. We have videos that are slow motion of golden age fighters, especially Karahat, doing the golden kick. There's a blog post I have that you guys can go see that has really nice examples of this from different golden age fighters. It's a brilliant kick. It's really good in getting your kick in before someone can block you. It's really good in not kicking elbows, and it's really good in not telegraphing your kick. I had a very wide kick for a very long time, and one of the things that really helped me kind of straighten it out was cheating with training wheels, like using the wall or using the ropes of my ring in order to kind of like keep my leg from flaring out or from coming really wide. So that's what I'm going to be doing with this wall. That's why I like cleared out so much space with my coffee table, so that I could do it with my leg as well. So I'm going to be working the trajectory of the golden kick against my wall here. So start with that. I don't know if I'm in frame. I'm trying not to get too much light from the window. Bear with me there. So before I switch sides, this is very uncomfortable for me. I've not done this in a long time. So I am not doing this perfectly. This is not a demo. I'm actually working out and working on my technique in my house. So something that I'm focusing on before switching sides now is I want to be coming up on my toe like this. I don't want to stay in one spot and pivot really hard. I don't want to step out too much. I basically want to do a slight step out with my toe mostly pointed forward and kind of like this as I come up with my kick. That's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm trying to make adjustments to while I'm counting these on my wall. Literally working out at home. This is me doing my own stuff, so not a demo, not teaching anything. Do it along with me or not. It's harder on that side, so I'm trying to get, because I'm orthodox, I'm like this, I'm going to be stepping with my right foot, so I'm going to try to get that kind of like step up as I go. Something that I talked about yesterday was learning how to like control your breathing under pressure. I don't have any pressure, this is just me in a wall, but I noticed that I'm holding my breath as I'm trying to do something because I'm like making a concerted effort. So because of the effort, because I'm like making this like, oh, where's my foot going? I'm holding my breath. So another thing that in addition to simply, am I coming up on my toe on the technique, is my leg coming up along the wall, is it not blowing out the line, this kind of thing. In addition to all those things, what's really important for me is catching that I'm holding my breath when I do that, because I don't want to do that under real pressure, because that's what really tires you out. One of the biggest fears beginners have when they contact me and they're really worried about their first fight is that they're going to gas out. It's really hard to gas out in the time frame of a fight. Like, human beings can do absolutely incredible things having never trained for them before. Like, you can run a marathon having trained like 4 times for it. It's insane what we can do. The reason you might gas out in a fight, or the reason you might be gassing out on pads but you can actually run 10K, is because of your breathing. So something that I was talking about yesterday is actually making intention towards learning how to breathe in these circumstances. So just now, me noticing that I'm holding my breath in order to get this technique on the wall is something that, because I'm aware of it, now I can work on it, now I can focus on letting my breath out while I'm doing that and kind of make that correction as I go. All right. I'm going to do a little bit of galloping before I go back on the wall and do my punches, just because I feel like I wasn't feeling that great when I started, but now that I'm moving around, I feel a little bit like I'm going to do a bit of the footwork. So I'm just going to do a little bit of galloping around, which is the footwork that I'm trying to bring into my fights that all of these weapons would come out of. So again, it's taking things that are kind of in drill form, like if you're doing 500 of something or 100 in a set, or repetitions of something. Never leave it in isolation like that. You can practice it and try to perfect the pieces of it in isolation in a drill, but then try to weave it into how you're actually going to be moving in space. So how your footwork goes when you're moving in space is how your weapons are going to come out of that. So it's really important to always keep integrating that back in when you're on the bag, when you're shadow boxing, on the pads, sparring, all of those things. You really want to take those pieces and weave them together. So because I was using the wall to calibrate my chicken elbow, I'm trying to pay attention in my shadow boxing to not having the wall, like not letting the wall be the reason that I'm not chicken elbowing, and only the wall is the reason I'm not chicken elbowing. I'm using the wall to train the track of that feeling so that when I punch, it follows the same track as what I'm feeling against the wall. Again, it's like training wheels. Like you don't want to keep the training wheels on forever. You're using it as like a cheat in calibration in order to familiarize yourself with that feeling and then take the feeling into your more natural freestyle movements and have that be your guide. Let's count on that one. Came off because I forgot I was just doing 25. All right, I'm gonna just go straight into my kicks again. If you guys have questions on something, let me know. One of the things that you want to do when you're working on punches and kicks and things like this is that we think of offense all the time. Especially how we learn in the West is when you're doing pad work and bag work and things like this, it's all just offense all the time. But you really want there to be a very natural flow between offense and defense. One of my favorite things with working with Chai Sasakun is when he teaches you something, the defense is built into it, because everything is this like, everything comes from here and everything is super symmetrical, like rotating around the core. So your block like this is setting up for that hook like that. If you've thrown like this and your block is already in, any movement you make could be offense or defense at the same time. You shouldn't have to switch between the two. It's not quite the same as how a lot of people, in very good intentions, will learn to block and then kick and then block, like as a offense-defense combo. That's good in terms of like training these grooves in understanding like kick, block kind of thing. But again, in the way that you want to be training feelings, you want the feeling of offense and defense to actually be like counterbalances to each other all the time. So when you're working on something, even if it's just against a wall, even if you're just doing like 500 elbows like I was doing yesterday and the day before, in throwing anything, you want to feel the defense, like you want to feel the counter guard at the same time, or you want to feel how when you've finished throwing that elbow, how the block on this side is actually setting up for the movement on the other side. So that's another thing that I think about when I'm working on stuff, is that as much as possible, even when you're isolating techniques, don't keep them isolated, like try to balance them into things like offense and defense and coming back on balance off of things and things like that. You never want to be permitting yourself to be off balance at the end of moves because you've finished the move and now you get to like stop everything and reset. There's really no resetting in fights. It should be this like continuity of movement. Arm is flaring out. So I have to think about that. I have to think about keeping that in. breathing, but then also noticing something on that is that I'm leaning back a lot on the kick, and I'm supposed to be leading with my chest. So again, this is like getting used to the feeling of something. So I feel that I'm leaning back, and I realize that the whole reason that I'm coming up on my toe like this is to kind of like lead with my chest. So if I'm leading with my chest, I should not be leaning back on the end of it. It's just these like, this is why you work on technique at home, is to really, really hound into yourself, feeling the details of it. And something that's very hard for me, but something that's very important to learn and something to get used to is, I think I said this in the first lesson, is know the difference, but don't judge the difference. So I'm leaning back on these kicks, which I've been trying to stop doing for a really long time. And so part of my internal coach is being like, stop leaning back on those kicks. You should know better by now, blah, blah, blah. That actually doesn't help you at all. Instead, just being aware that I'm leaning back on the kick and that I should be leading with my chest. Now feel what it feels like to lead with the chest and leave it at that. Like just feel the chest leading and leave it at that and just keep going. That's one of the reasons high repetition that I've been doing the past 2 days is really, really good, is that there's no time for you to like judge each individual one. You're just moving into the next one. So doing stuff like this and alternating with high repetition to like keep your brain in check, to let everything kind of work itself out, is a little bit of a hack mentally in terms of like letting yourself make mistakes and not be halted by them, to just move past them, to know the difference but don't judge the difference, and just kind of keep moving that way. So I'm going to go back and do my punches on the wall. I have 2 more sets of those. Trying to get a little bit of that like blocking and coming up on the other side that I was talking about. So just now I tried to do a little bit of the footwork against the wall. Again, how I was saying that like all your weapons come out of the way that you move. I have for many years struggled against this like RoboCop footwork thing that I do. It's when I get very flat-footed and I kind of like come in like this. This is not good. Nothing comes out of it. It's very protected, and I go very protected like that because my opponent is kicking me, or I'm afraid of them, or I'm just trying to guard myself. But that kind of maximum protect, nothing comes out of it. So something that I've been working on is to put myself in a position that realistically I will be in a fight. If someone's throwing elbows at me, I'm gonna need to have, my guard up really high, but I tend to punch out of like this. So punching out of where I'm actually gonna be, because if you train punching here, and then in a fight you're actually guarded like this, your natural states, you don't have any feeling for punching out of the state that you're actually gonna be in. It's that same thing with the footwork of this. It's like no weapons come out of it. So instead, I'm training myself to feel protected, but like have the footwork that my weapons actually will come out of. So I'm throwing those on the wall as well. Again, as a part of like integrate and bring together all of these different things you're working on. Henning says hello from Germany. long-time lurker. Thank you so much for catching your community, especially in times like these. I also wanted to give you guys both a big shout out. You guys both would be me and my husband Kevin. For information on techniques you provide, having the insights from legends with your explanation has really helped me. Please keep it up. Thank you very much. One, for giving credit to Kevin. I think he's often forgotten. He does so much in terms of, we are a unit in terms of everything that we put out. Kevin does a lot of work, and a lot of people do thank him, which makes me very happy. It means that people recognize that. But thank you to everyone who does thank Kevin. It's very cool. One of the things that I think is really cool about doing these home workouts is that everything that I'm thinking about while I'm doing these comes from the Muay Thai Library. All of this comes from the legends who I've trained with. And so there's like one way to do it that this one legend does it, and then there's another way to do it this other legend does it, and you can kind of play with both of them and kind of do like a remix of the two of them. This is a very good time, if you're a patron, to really get into the Muay Thai Library. There's more than 90 hours of long form training. So you get to see how those techniques both are expressed through that particular fighter, as well as how they teach it and how they like integrate it into their style. So if you want to like geek out and kind of like get way into how different fighters use different techniques, and you have a lot of time on your hands, this is like literally the perfect time to just geek out and get into the library. I've been looking through some things and like pulling things out of there myself, and I think it's just a very cool opportunity to work on things yourself that you see in somebody, because you're kind of like interpreting it for yourself. There's voiceover from me in what that legend was teaching, or what that teacher is trying to express, and how to like break down that technique and work on it yourself. But having the freedom of like nobody guiding you and like no technique drilling or something, and just kind of like free form, no equipment, it's actually a really cool time to be experimenting with different things and just kind of like getting into your own style. You might develop something really, really strange that when we all get back to our gyms, you can try out and see if it works against someone. Something that Karahat talked about was how he's working with the same people every day in his gym. And so he's like, if I could trick someone who sees me and works with me every day, I knew that I could trick my opponent in the ring, because they don't know me, like they don't train with me every day. And I think that's kind of cool to be working on stuff like this now, like when you're by yourself and you're like coming up with things that you want to try, is like work on it here, use this as your little secret like laboratory where you work on things, and then you can unveil them when we all get back to our gyms and like see what our teammates think of it. Shan from New Zealand, hello. Kevin is a legend. Thank you, Michelle. This is true. Sarma from Greece. All right, I'm gonna bust out my last 100 of my punches on the wall, and then probably just do a little bit of like shakeout shadow boxing as the last thing. But again, coming off the wall and having like trained my arm, I want to recreate the feeling I have of the wall guiding my arm in the more free form. It's like if you have weight equipment at a gym that's like on the tracks. You use the weights on the tracks in order to get the form right, but then you want to go to the free weights and use that same feeling of that track weight, but then get the benefits of free weights where you have to like counterbalance everything at the same time. Kind of. a little more fun as I've worked on them. Thank you guys. Very nice comments. We appreciate you just as much, Kevin, and love your input, especially when you guys have coffee on your podcast. We have a podcast, Kevin and me, that we've actually been looking at today because there were some that hadn't gone up on Patreon yet, but it's us driving across Thailand. We're like getting all nostalgic for sitting in our car for 12 hours having these discussions, usually on the way back from fights, so that's very cool. Hopefully we'll be getting back to that pretty soon. And then there's a supplementary version that's called Library Coffee, which is what's being referenced in this comment. We usually have coffee in the car too, but Library Coffee is after we've watched one of our sessions and we go and we talk about it, like what our impressions are, either having just done the session or having just watched it for the voiceover. But it's a cool supplement to what's in the library because it's like what comes out immediately as an impression off of what that person is teaching. So part of what to me is really cool about the Muay Thai Library is that in doing long form, like we don't edit it to be like highlights or like let's just break the kick into this one thing and like only show the kick. By showing the long form, by showing me not getting it and making mistakes and having to be corrected and kind of like guided towards things in the way that things are truly taught by these legends, is that you also get to see these legends whose style they're teaching. So I can tell you how cool Diesel Noi is, but until you actually see Diesel Noi out of breath explaining his like, this is how you kill someone's style, you really get to see Diesel Noi. Karahat is a very interesting character, and actually seeing like how he moves and then how he talks and how he expresses things, they go together, like they totally make sense. You would never know that Yodkunpan, the elbow hunter of 100 Stitches, is so soft-spoken and so sweet, and then he's just gonna like slash your face open. And I watched a lot of Samart fights, but it wasn't until I was standing in front of Samart and like meeting Samart that I became like a huge fan of him just from his person. So I'm really happy to be archiving the men who are teaching these techniques and carrying these techniques into the library. And so the Library Coffee is a little bit like that, of talking about like what it was like to be standing in front of that person, working with that person, because you can see the technique and you can practice the technique, but you can also feel what it's like to be in the ring with Sagat. Is like being in an enclosed space with a tiger. You're like, where are the exits? Very cool. All right. I'm going to do a little bit of galloping and moving around, and then I'll finish up with my push-ups and sit-ups, but I don't film those, so you guys can imagine what those are. But I'm just going to move around a little bit as kind of a little bit of my cool down and pulling these things together for feeling. This got a little bit up. That's going to be it for me for today. Thank you guys who joined in. Thank you guys for coming into my living room with me in our social distancing and working out while we're away from our gyms. We're not afraid of our gyms. Yeah, this is something that I'm working out on my own. I'm in Chiang Mai. We'll be going home in a little bit, but I don't really know what the situation is going to be in 10 days. We're all kind of in a state where like everything is changing very quickly, and just be safe, everybody. And pay attention to what resources you have in your room. Like, we are connected to the world with our phones. Like, you guys watching me in Thailand right now on your phones, you have amazing access to videos, and other people I know are also live streaming from their gyms. Like, they're keeping their members engaged with like little workouts that they can be doing at home and things like this. So if you come up with ideas, share that forward with people. I think that it's not only a like, where can I find where other people are doing this, but also if you have ideas, share those ideas. I've been getting people tagging me in their Instagrams because they're doing the workout that I'm doing here, which I really, really like. People are like tagging me in their videos of doing their knees against the wall and elbows in space and things like this. My friend Caro is still in Pattaya. She trains at the same gym as me at Petrun. We usually would be doing our elbow sparring together. We're very far apart. But she's doing the workout basically in our apartment building. So she's like marching knees from her door to my door. I'm not there. But that's the kind of thing that we can be doing. You can, step out on your balcony or in your front lawn, as long as you're 6 feet away from people, and kind of do stuff like this. Something that I've seen is people saying that it's physical distancing, not necessarily social distancing, even though we're calling it social distancing. I think that using this time to really socially connect and emotionally connect and share what we love about these things is really important. Something that Kevin says to me as something that's something I need to be better at is that he gets very excited about things, and I get very anxious about things because I get very hard on myself about whether I can do something or not. And he reminds me, he says, let his fire light my fire. So when he's excited about something, let his excitement also excite me. And I think that's what this is. While we're all separated like this, if you're excited about something, and we can all be excited about something together, is let your fire light other people's fire, and let other people's fire light your fire. We can kind of like keep this energy together, even though we're in very strange times. So thank you guys for joining in on this. I'll be seeing you later. I'm going to be doing this in my apartment a lot. So work on some stuff, make your technique better. Don't just think that you're in a like standstill. We can all be improving in this time as well. So yeah, stay safe. See you guys later.